That's right, today we're talking. It should honestly go without saying, but I love superheroes, and it should be a no-brainer, but I love The Incredibles.
Coincidence? I think not!
But you know what else I love? Villains. Some of my favorite characters are villains. The Joker, Magneto, but you know what? These are just villains. They aren't super villains. And Megamind is in more ways than one. He is honestly a better character than most villains or even heroes of any comic, as far as I can see. Megamind is a sort of hidden gem that came out among some titans for films. See, 2010 had a lot of animated films, and brought about one of the most toxic things in media, and that's Despicable Me.
Oh yeah!
Okay, don't get me wrong, when Despicable Me dropped, I really enjoyed it, and maybe, just maybe, I would say that I enjoyed it just as much as Megamind. But over years, that has massively shifted. Like, yeah, I mean, I still enjoy Despicable Me, talking exclusively about the first movie, but Megamind is infinitely better. Also, Minion is the best Minion, no cap. 2010 being the insane year that it was also pitted Megamind off against another DreamWorks franchise in the same year with Shrek Forever After. Quick side note, if you haven't seen Forever After, it's actually really good. I know that the third was one of the worst movies ever made, but you will enjoy this one. I promise, it's really good. With these extremely substantial movies being released all at the same time, it honestly makes sense how this blue-headed supervillain would just disappear under a rug. Fortunately though, Megamind has been gaining traction over the years, and if you haven't seen it, I'm here to tell you to get off your ass, or rather go sit down and watch this movie because it is a real treat. I mentioned earlier that Megamind is super in more ways than one, and that's real. You see, this film doesn't play games and treat its audience like know-nothing idiots. It handles real-world problems in a fun and creative way, and doesn't linger on issues that don't matter for too long. I would say the main underlying message in this movie is really something special. That you need to be true to yourself, and that being anything other than that is actually evil! Megamind himself deals with figuring out who he is, and it all spurs from this one line his parents tell him at the beginning of the movie.
Destined for.
I didn't quite hear that last part, but it sounded important. Destined for what?
And we too have to work out this "what is Megamind destined for?" This "what are you destined for" line applies to every character in the movie, including Megamind's nemesis Metro Man, who comes to term with being who he is long before Megamind does. I really love the idea of Music Man.
And Music Man was born.
Music Man?
That way I could keep my logo.
I know that might sound a little crazy. Honestly, this character might be my favorite not because he's zany or the best singer to ever walk the planet, Frank Sinatra, eat your heart out, but that he shows us that just because you can be a hero or that you have more power than anyone, it doesn't mean that you have to, and that it's just better to do what's best for you, even if the rest of the entire world just doesn't agree. I mean, come on. The beauty of this film is the character growth, and the time that it takes to flesh out a world, a conflict, and the meaning of that conflict with an extremely satisfying resolution. The conflict being, of course, what are you destined for? This also applies to Roxanne. She's such a great character. Yeah, sure, she's the classic damsel in distress, but by no means is she the damsel in distress, if you follow my Ice Age continental drift here.
Oh, girls, you're both pretty. Can I go home now?
You see, Roxanne is able to hold her ground in the face of danger and toxic neckbeard mentality. Oh man, this movie was way ahead of its time in dealing with this issue, I might add. Hal is a total simp and the worst version of any quote-unquote nice guy, fedora-toting, love me because I love you, oh nice guys finish last pieces of garbage in our world. This scene right here.
Hal, I don't really feel like being around a bunch of people.
No, that's the best part. It'll just be like you and me.
Oh man, it makes me cringe every time. And if you're like this, reevaluate your life, watch this moment a million times, and figure it out. I love that even this is concluded in such a, genuine way too. The fact that you can have this guy who's just easily the biggest bumbling idiot alive become a superhero and still not get the girl is one of the most satisfying things in film. Speaking of satisfying, it's really hard to find faults with this movie at all. Like, this was released at a time when DreamWorks was putting their heart and soul in film. I mean, they even got Guillermo del Toro as a consultant on this film. You know, the guy that did a fantastic anti-hero film? And some of the creepiest movies to ever exist. Like, what on earth are they doing here? It's definitely a passion project, and it deserves far more love than it received on release. Megamind is a movie that I've loved since it came out. I graduated high school at the same time, and it was just kind of a portion of growth for both movies and myself. And it's honestly grown on me like a fine wine or smooth. Yeah, Megamind might not be a perfect movie, but it is damn near perfect. If I did point whatevers on movies, this would be like a 9.7 or something like that. Not quite perfect, but it's really close. Who knows? Maybe with this film gaining traction, we can finally figure out
Destined for what?